Yes guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome to the George Benson Football Channel. It is still the international break. England won 10-0 away in San Marino to qualify for the World Cup in 2022. If that isn't a good enough reason to hit the like button on today's video, I have got for you guys a little video that is classic international break kind of style. Today, we're going to be taking a look at one player that I would sign for Chelsea from every single Premier League club. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at my best Chelsea starting 11. I'm then going to take a look at my combined 11 between the Premier League and Chelsea, and then we're going to go through each club in the Premier League, and I'm going to pick one player that I would sign who would either potentially make the bench at Chelsea, would challenge for the bench, or would get into Chelsea's starting 11. And I'll give you guys my rating as to whether or not I feel as though the player that we're talking about would actually get in to the Chelsea team at this moment in time. Chelsea are obviously top of the Premier League table. For my starting 11, for the best, strongest 11 right now, you guys can see it up on the screen. We're going to put it in the graphic. And this is also my Premier League 11, going with a similar formation to that of the Chelsea team. As you can see in there, we've got 4 Chelsea players in my current best Premier League 11. It is quite interesting right now that still, when it comes to talking about who's going to win the league, a lot of the pundits are still writing off Chelsea. And as Chelsea fans, we always love it when we're the underdogs. We love it when people don't expect us to win it, because that is when we play at our very best. 2012, even this year, in 2021, when Chelsea won the Champions League, everyone was looking at that Pep Guardiola Man City side thinking there's no way that they're not going to do what they haven't done before, which is lift the trophy. Thomas Tuchel comes barging in and he says, you know what?
I've had enough of this nonsense, we're going to win it.
In Porto, and Chelsea are soon to release a documentary talking about that famous night. So, to remind you all, here is my best Chelsea 11 right now. And here is my best Premier League 11 right now, including the Chelsea players that I would have in that best 11, not just based off of current form. Well, it's pretty much based off of current form. There are a few in there that you might agree with, you might disagree with. Let me know the players that you would change in the comments down below. But first things first, we begin Arsenal. And we are going to start with Emile Smith-Rowe. Scored last night for England, assisted by, you guessed it, Mr. Tammy Abraham. Since 2020 to now, he's made 44 appearances for Arsenal, scoring 8 goals and 9 assists. Emile Smith-Rowe, there has recently been a Twitter debate going around talking about who's a better footballer, Mason Mount or Emile Smith-Rowe. Arsenal, I believe, are 10 games unbeaten right now, and Emile Smith-Rowe has been one of the best players, if not the best Arsenal player so far this season. When we look through that Arsenal squad, there is a lot of youth in there right now, and I think if they can carry on building on that form that they've currently got, then they might even finish in the top 4 this season, maybe at the expense of a Manchester United. Emile Smith-Rowe, at this moment in time, I would say that he would get onto the Chelsea bench. And I know that there's definitely Chelsea bias within this video. And again, it's why I make these kind of videos. I want you guys, as Chelsea fans, to let me know in the comments if you think I'm being irrational. Do you think I got this one right? I would still have Mason Mount in my starting 11 right now over Emile Smith-Rowe. We move into Aston Villa. Now, the interesting one with a lot of the clubs down the bottom half of the Premier League is it's very difficult to say that any of their players would A, get into the Chelsea starting 11, and B, some of them, they would even struggle to get on the bench. But with Aston Villa, it's more about praising an incredible player who would probably be testing Kepa for the number 2 spot. Emiliano Martinez is a fantastic goalkeeper at Aston Villa. 18 clean sheets in his last 48 appearances since the beginning of 2020. Save percentage of just over 70%, with 71.3. He's not quite banging on the door of Edouard Mendy, but Emiliano Martinez is a top quality goalkeeper, makes some wonderful saves, and I think that if Chelsea would assign one player from Aston Villa, he'd be the one that I'd wanted. And I think, again, he probably wouldn't want to come to Chelsea, it's all hypothetical, but Emiliano Martinez, in my opinion, is the best player at Aston Villa. Now, Brentford, the player that I would sign for Chelsea is actually a player who I think would be a good Chelsea signing because of the way that he plays. The player I've gone for is Ivan Toney. Since the beginning of 2020, he's made 60 appearances, 36 goals, and 13 assists. Ivan Toney is a very, very smart footballer. He's great with his back to goal, which again, from Chelsea strikers over the years, you think of Drogba, you think of Costa. Two strikers who were phenomenal with their backs against the goal. Ivan Toney's got that too. He's very strong, he's very quick, and I actually think in terms of the lower half of the Premier League, he is one of the better strikers and one of the players who I would genuinely say would be somebody who could be a contender to be in the Chelsea squad if Chelsea were indeed to sign him. Some fans that support some of the clubs in the Premier League watching this today might think, you know what, this is a very arrogant video to make because very few of these players from any of the lower-sided Premier League clubs could actually get into the Chelsea team right now. But it's why we're doing it. It gives us a chance to look through the Prem and see what we have. Moving into Brighton. Now, Brighton this season have been phenomenal. And they've got a CDM at the club who a lot of people thought was going to move on in the summer. I think Liverpool were linked with him. We are talking about Yves Bissouma. Now, as you can see with the graphic on the screen, I'm looking over at my laptop here. 42 appearances since the beginning of last year. Averages 2 tackles per game and nearly 2 interceptions per game as well. Bissouma is a fantastic player. Positional awareness, he's one of the most key players in the Brighton midfield. And I would say that Bissouma would be a player that Chelsea could potentially look at in the transfer market one of these days soon in one of the upcoming windows if we're priced out of a player like Declan Rice, which is highly likely at this point with the way that Declan Rice keeps on building. We move into Burnley. And it's Nick Pope. Again, I looked through the Burnley team and I thought, this is a tough one. We've got to go with either the best player at every club, maybe a player that Chelsea have been linked with, and we have actually been linked with Nick Pope in the past, when it looked as though Kepa Arrizabalaga wanted to leave Chelsea. Now, we are blessed to have two content goalkeepers in Edouard Mendy and Kepa, but Nick Pope is a top quality keeper. Great with his feet, brilliant distribution, an excellent shot stopper, and to an extent, I'm kind of surprised that he's actually stayed at Burnley as long as he has. We move into Crystal Palace, and this one is again another obvious one because he's currently on loan from Chelsea. Got his England debut last night. Conor Gallagher is the player that I would take right now from Crystal Palace. They've got some great young players in this Palace team. I think what Patrick Vieira's building at Crystal Palace is very interesting. But when we look at the Chelsea midfield, I think Conor Gallagher at the moment, we have so many midfielders and so many great attacking players that it would be hard for him to get into the squad. However, with 11 games played in the Premier League, if he carries on going the way he's going, I think that Conor Gallagher has that potential in a Chelsea team to be that kind of Frank Lampard-esque player who can do so many different roles in the midfield, arrive late to score goals. And I think Conor Gallagher's got that. Got his England call-up, made his debut against San Marino, and was on the field in a 10-0 England victory. I think the future's very bright for Conor. And we move into Everton. Now, there's an Everton player who I personally believe would be a fantastic backup to Ben Chilwell. And again, this video, I've kind of got to be brutal with honesty at times with some of these players. And I do think that Luca Digne, Everton's left-back, would be a better backup than Marcos Alonso. I think Alonso is a player who I respect greatly at Chelsea. I think what he's done since he signed for the club has been absolutely fantastic. He's scored a lot of big goals. He's had big seasons. He's had big runs of form that have actually won a lot of points for Chelsea Football Club. However, I think Luca Digne is a step above as a fullback. 7 assists since the beginning of last year. Averages 3 tackles a game. Very rarely injured as well. I think Luca Digne would certainly be a decent player for Chelsea to have in the squad. Again, all of this is hypothetical, just in case people want to start commenting saying Chelsea aren't even linked with these players, we're never going to sign these guys. I know it is one player from every Premier League club that I would sign if Chelsea had the capabilities of signing one player from every Premier League club. We move into Leeds United, and I think this one's kind of obvious because there's a lot of you guys that have actually said to me, should Chelsea sign Rafinha? Now, I think if Chelsea will be looking for a winger, if you look at all of the stories that we've spoken about in the last week or so here on GBFC, in Chelsea news regarding Barcelona basically wanting Werner, Ziyech, Pulisic and Callum Hudson-Odoi, wanting to sign everybody from us. You look at some of the potential of some of these players not being happy with minutes, particularly Hakim Ziyech, and Chelsea will not want to be left short in these positions. And I think Rafinha is a proven now Premier League winger. I think he's probably the most exciting player at Leeds United, and his statistics, he's got 20 goal contributions in his last 44 games since the beginning of last year. It's excellent, and I think he is a very, very decent player. We move into Leicester City, and again, another one that's kind of interesting. Youri Tielemans is the man that I've gone for, and this guy is capable of scoring a wonder goal. And when we look at the Chelsea team that we have now, I think one of the only, there's not many, but one of the main criticisms I would say about this Chelsea squad at this moment is we don't really have a player who is willing to shoot and score from outside of the area. Youri Tielemans is definitely that guy. He even scored a wonder goal against us in the FA Cup, and he's had a couple this season already as well. 16 contributions in 51 appearances over the course of the last year and a half, or 2 years pretty much. Youri Tielemans is some player, and I think over the next couple of windows, we're going to see if he stays at Leicester. If he doesn't, I think big Premier League clubs are going to be interested in him. And with an ageing central midfield that Chelsea have, with Kante getting on, Jorginho getting on, you do look at that central midfield position and you wonder if Chelsea can't back Conor Gallagher, Billy Gilmour, Ruben Loftus-Cheek in those positions. Someone like Youri Tielemans, Premier League proven, could be someone that Chelsea go for. Now, we move into silly season now. We move into the territory of this is never going to happen. However, as Chelsea fans, we might be top of the league, but we've always got to remember that there are other great teams in this league, and there are other players who, no matter how good our team is, these guys would 110% get into our team. For Liverpool, I've gone with Mo Salah, just so that I can, for once, talk about the fact that we had him at Chelsea, and people seem to think that this is just a dreadful Chelsea decision that was made. At the time that we sold Mo Salah, nobody could have predicted that he'd have gone to Roma, did what he did, and then backed that up with an incredible career that he's had at Liverpool. When you look at the stats that are up on the screen now, 60 contributions in 66 games, playing in the toughest league in the world and the UEFA Champions League for Liverpool. It is sensational stats, phenomenal, and there's a reason why Mo Salah is touted as the best player in the world right now. I think he thoroughly deserves all of those accolades that are being thrown his way. And for sure, if Chelsea had Mo Salah in our team right now, it would be a joke. You know, the Premier League would 100% be coming to Stamford Bridge, and the Champions League trophy, we need to buy a little bit of extra polish to keep it in the cabinet for another season. Now then, the next player that we're going to take a look at is from Manchester City. I could have gone down the same kind of street as I did with Liverpool, talking about ex-Chelsea boy Mo Salah. Could have picked Kevin De Bruyne, but I've gone with Bernardo Silva. And I think Bernardo Silva is one of the most underrated players in world football. Now, the thing I love about Bernardo Silva is that he can play almost anywhere. And at this moment in time, I think he is one of the key players in Manchester City's system. I think as a false nine, he's absolutely fantastic. As a winger, he's absolutely fantastic, scores big goals, gets into great positions, creates key passes for his teammates, and I think he could be one of those players when Chelsea are looking a bit slow and we're struggling to actually create that build-up play that creates big chances for our strikers to finish, or whoever's playing up front. Bernardo Silva can not only be the finisher, but he's also a wonderful creator as well, and I think he is one of the more underrated players in the Premier League. Now this one is a little bit of fun as I take a look at Jadon Sancho. He's the Man United player I would sign. You know why? Because at the moment, it's probably been the biggest disaster class signing of the season across the Premier League. I think very few people at this point could actually argue with that comment. Jadon Sancho, he's a Chelsea fan. He was linked with us for so long, and I just wonder if things could have been a lot different for Jadon Sancho in the Premier League if he was playing under a decent manager at a club who, well, yeah, it's not going so well at Man United at the moment, is it? So yeah, if I could sign a United player, I could say Ronaldo, that's obvious, but just for my own personal liking and inclination, I would take Jadon Sancho. We move into Newcastle United, and again, a player who I like very much is Alan Saint-Maximin. In terms of goal contributions, he's made 37 appearances since the beginning of 2020, 5 goals, 7 assists. It isn't mind-blowing numbers, but Saint-Maximin, he is a very explosive, exciting player who can make things happen. He's been playing under Steve Bruce, he's now under Eddie Howe, but Steve Bruce, not the most attacking manager. A lot of the time, Saint-Maximin is actually the the only player in the Newcastle team capable of making something happen. And what I like about Alan Saint-Maximin and why he is almost a semi-realistic signing for Chelsea in a way, even though we wouldn't go for him, and Newcastle, now that they got money, certainly won't be selling. He is that kind of explosive winger who can play as a striker too, who can get into very good positions. And I think at Chelsea, if we were to sell a couple of our wingers, again, hypothetical talk, I know, Saint-Maximin would be a player with Premier League experience proven who I would consider as a very good signing option. Would he get into the Chelsea starting 11 though? I highly doubt that he would, but a very, very good Premier League player nonetheless. We move into Norwich, and of course, I'm here to talk about Billy Gilmour, the man who, under Daniel Farke, it's not been the best start to the loan move for Billy Gilmour. I've got to pick him because I still think, having seen Billy play at Chelsea and what he can do, as a Champions League winner, if this man isn't playing, yet you're losing every single game, there's something wrong with the management. Great news for Norwich, they finally sacked that manager. I think Billy Gilmour is a top quality player, and I think in the future, this loan move needs to speed up for him dramatically if he's to be considered for Chelsea next season. At the moment, he wouldn't get into the team. Ruben's playing very well, but again, given the right time, given the right minutes, Billy Gilmour will prove exactly how good he is. We move into Southampton, and again, I wouldn't say this man would get into Chelsea starting 11, and I also think he probably would get on the bench, but at the detriment of who? James Ward-Prowse? It's still a struggle for me to see if James Ward-Prowse would even get onto the bench. 10 goals in his last 49 games in the last 2 years for Southampton. Good stats, obviously set pieces, pad that out a little bit, but we got to praise the man where it's deserved, and set pieces are certainly James Ward-Prowse's thing. He's a wonderful player. Would he get into the Chelsea team? Probably not, but he'd be the one I'd pick from Southampton. And we move into Spurs and Heung-min Son. Everyone would think Harry Kane's got to be the man that you'd sign from Spurs, but for me, I think Son is a wonderful, wonderful player. When Harry Kane's not in that Tottenham team, sometimes they even play better when they only have Heung-min Son on the pitch. When Heung-min Son isn't available, you can tell that Spurs struggle, particularly with Harry Kane, who's been struggling for club form recently. 7 goals in about 4 days for England. I'm sure, under Antonio Conte, Harry Kane is going to regain that form and he'll be right at the top of the goal scoring charts very, very soon. But it would be Heung-min Son. We got Lukaku going through the middle, and if Heung-min Son was on the left wing, it's a bit like having Mo Salah on the right from Liverpool. It would be absolutely redonkulous. We move into Watford, and again, just because of the YouTube presence, I've gone with Benjamin Foster. Ben Foster. You guys know the Cycling GK. If you don't, you should definitely go and check out his channel. Ben Foster, he is the first Premier League player to really take YouTube by storm. And I think, again, this is such a ridiculous rationale when I try to make this video fully serious about goalkeepers. No offence to Ben Foster. He's a top keeper still. He's made some brilliant saves and had some great performances this season. But he is, if I can be polite about it, at the tail end of his career. And I'm sure he wouldn't mind anybody saying that. It's true. And we've also got Kepa and Mendy. But Ben Foster, I would sign from Watford. I think Chelsea were linked with him a couple of years ago, and I was fully behind it. I think he's a top keeper, even at the age he is right now. So, yeah, that could have come across very rude there. And as he's a YouTuber, I shouldn't be trying to call people out. It's nothing bad, Ben, I promise. I think your channel's amazing. I think you're a top keeper, and the best of luck for the rest of your YouTube and footballing career. We move into West Ham. Now, this one is bloody obvious. If ever there was an obvious one, it is Big Declan Rice. Big Declan Rice, I think, would be the dream Chelsea signing. Not just for the narratives that it would kind of finalise of Chelsea Cobham Academy boy comes back to Chelsea, but Declan Rice is a sensational footballer. And at the moment, I would say, apart from Mo Salah's goals, I would argue that Declan Rice has been the best player in the Premier League so far this season. He's a Chelsea boy too. It is just the dream Chelsea signing. And I think until we see if West Ham can finish in a Champions League place this year or not, they look like they could. I don't think they will. But maybe we see Chelsea go in again for Declan Rice and put in a monstrous bid to bring him to Chelsea to either be that box-to-box 8 that he's currently doing the perfect job for at West Ham, or maybe as a number 6, but I think he's better as a box-to-box midfielder. I think Declan Rice is fabulous. We move into Wolverhampton Wanderers, and I've gone with Adama Traore, simply because wing-back cover, right wing cover as well. I think Adama Traore, on his day, can be an unplayable player. I think he's nowhere near consistent enough for that ability that he has, and he only shows it infrequently. But I do think he's a top quality player, and I think he'd be a good squad player if Chelsea were indeed to sign him. We were linked in the summer. I said I didn't want him, but now, for the purpose of this video, I look at it and I think, well, you know what? Sometimes we need backup in those areas. We might need backup on the wings if players are complaining they're not getting enough minutes and we need to sign people. So yeah, Adama Traore would be the man that I would go for from Wolves. Now, to wrap up this video, I look at this list of players that we've got here today, and I'm flicking them all through on the screen now. There are very few players right now that I would change. I think Chelsea, the way that we're set up, the way that we have depth in our squad, I think it's no surprise that we're actually top of the league. And I wanted to make this video today to really sit here for myself and think about A, how lucky we are to have such a quality squad with such great players and a wonderful tactical manager. But also, as things come closer to January, as there is always pressure on signings, keeping everything fresh, I look across and on this list, there are probably only, I could count on both hands, probably between 5 and 10 that would even get close to the Chelsea starting 11 on this list right now. I think Chelsea are playing that well. Let me know all of your players from each club that you would love Chelsea to sign in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to GBFC if you are new. And I'll catch you guys tomorrow with a brand new video. See you later.